The staff table was positioned behind the catering station at the Thornhill Estate, where my sister Vivienne's wedding receptions sparkled with old money and newer ambitions. I sat wedged between two exhausted waiters who'd been serving champagne for 4 hours, at a folding table that didn't match the crystal-laden guest tables filling the ballroom. From my corner, I could barely see the head table where Vivienne and her new husband Preston held court like minor celebrities. "We need her out of sight," Vivienne had told the wedding planner this morning, not bothering to whisper. "Preston's family is very particular about their image. Put her in the back with the help. She won't mind, she's used to being invisible." The words had stung less than they should have. At 33, unmarried and working in what my family called that political consulting thing, I'd become the family embarrassment. The one who didn't fit the mold. What they didn't know, what I'd been contractually prohibited from discussing until this week, was that my political consulting meant serving as senior advisor to the president's chief of staff. For 6 years I'd worked in the West Wing, drafted policy briefs that shaped national decisions and coordinated strategies that most Americans would never know about. Some campaign job that never went anywhere, Dad had explained to Preston's family at the rehearsal dinner. Nothing like Vivienne's position at the museum. She's being considered for curator. My position required security clearances that took 18 months to obtain. But that wasn't dinner party conversation, so it didn't exist. My phone buzzed. The secure White House line with its distinctive encryption tone. I excused myself to the empty terrace, away from the reception noise and the clatter of dishes being cleared. "Chin," I answered quietly. "Miss Chin, the motorcade is 8 minutes out," Director Morrison said. "The president's son wanted me to confirm the venue has been briefed on security protocols." "Confirmed. The manager knows to expect additional security but nothing else. I'd handled the logistics yesterday with credentials that made the venue manager's eyes widen. Everything's arranged." "Excellent. He's looking forward to this," said, and I quote, "time for the family to understand who Maya really is." I smiled despite myself. "Tell him I appreciate the dramatic flair." "Will do. See you shortly." I returned to the staff table as dessert service began for the actual guests. One of the waiters offered me a bite of the 5-tier wedding cake that had cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Might as well try it. You're basically crew anyway, right?" From my position behind the catering station, I watched Vivienne's perfect wedding unfold. Preston's family occupied the prime tables. His father was a federal appeals judge, his mother sat on the boards of 3 major charities, his sister had married into the Caldwell shipping fortune. The Ashford-Preston union represented exactly the social elevation our parents had always wanted. The toasts began. Preston's best man told stories about yacht clubs and summer houses. Vivienne's maid of honor, our cousin Diana, gave a speech about women who have everything versus those who let opportunity pass them by. She'd glanced toward the back when she said it, though she probably couldn't see me behind the serving station. Mom and Dad sat at table 2, glowing with pride. This wedding was their social triumph. The Ashfords finally arriving at the level they'd always aspired to. My phone buzzed. 5 minutes. I stood and walked toward the entrance, ignoring the coordinator who tried to redirect me back to my corner. The venue's manager, Richards, met me near the doors. I'd briefed him yesterday with White House credentials he'd never seen before. "Security detail is positioned, Ms. Chen," he said quietly, his earlier skepticism replaced by nervous energy. "I still can't believe you work in the White House. It's not something I advertise." I watched through the windows as 3 black SUVs pulled up, followed by the official vehicle with government plates. "Let him enter naturally. No announcement." "You want me to let the president's son just walk in unannounced?" He specifically requested it. "Trust me." The Secret Service detail entered first, professional, discreet but unmistakably federal agents. Then he appeared in the doorway. James Harrington was the president's youngest son, Georgetown law graduate, former federal prosecutor, and currently serving as special counsel to the Attorney General. At 37 he was being discussed for a federal judgeship. He was also brilliant, principled and, for the past year, my boyfriend. We'd met during a policy coordination meeting. He'd made a joke about bureaucratic inefficiency. I'd responded with a sharper joke about lawyers who thought they understood policy. We'd been inseparable since. But my family didn't know he existed. They'd stopped asking about my personal life years ago, assuming there was nothing to tell. Paya. His voice carried across the ballroom, cutting through the classical music. There you are. Every head turned. James crossed the room with confident strides, his Secret Service detail maintaining professional distance. He walked past table 2, where Mom had actually gasped, past the head table where Vivienne's fork froze halfway to her mouth, past all the society tables filled with Preston's important family, straight to the staff table behind the catering station. He pulled me into his arms and kissed me, not dramatically but with the casual intimacy of an established couple. Sorry I'm late. The meeting with Justice Department ran over. Behind him, one of the waiters had dropped a tray. The crash echoed through the suddenly silent ballroom. Preston's father, the federal appeals judge, had stood up from his chair, his face cycling through recognition and shock. You didn't have to come all the way out here, I said, following our loosely planned script. Are you kidding? Miss your sister's wedding? Besides, I wanted to meet the family you've told me about. He glanced around, taking in the staff table, the folding chairs, the position behind the serving station. Though I'm curious why you're seated back here. Usually the sister of the bride gets a place of honor. The silence was absolute. Richards appeared, suddenly professional. Mr. Harrington, we weren't informed of your attendance. We have a table prepared. I'll sit with Maya, James said easily, settling into the folding chair next to mine. One of his Secret Service agents discreetly repositioned himself with clear sight lines. Though you might want to bring better champagne. What you've served back here isn't quite the same quality as the main tables. The waiter who'd offered me cake earlier looked like he might pass out. Vivienne had descended from the head table, Preston and both sets of parents trailing behind. Her perfect wedding smile had frozen into something closer to panic. Maya, you never mentioned you were dating, that you knew. You never asked about my life, I said calmly. You assumed because I don't discuss my work or my personal life at family dinners that there was nothing worth discussing. We should have been informed, Preston's mother said, having rushed over with barely concealed alarm. If we'd known the president's son was attending. I'm not here as the president's son, James said coolly. I'm here as Maya's boyfriend. I came because she's important to me and I wanted to support her at her sister's wedding. He paused meaningfully. I wanted to meet the family that somehow decided she belonged at the staff table. Preston's father, who'd spent the cocktail hour discussing federal jurisprudence, had gone pale. As an appeals court judge, he understood exactly who James Harrington was and what his presence meant. Dad had pushed through the growing crowd. Maya, sweetheart, we had no idea you were seeing someone. Why didn't you tell us? I tried. Multiple times. You changed the subject or made jokes about me being married to my work. You stopped inviting me to bring anyone to family events because you assumed I'd always be alone. Mom's face crumpled. But if we'd known it was someone so important. That's exactly the problem, Mom. Someone is either worth respecting or they're not. It shouldn't matter whether they're dating the president's son. My life had value before James and it has value with him. But you only care now because he's standing here. James stood and the room instinctively quieted. He had that effect. The combination of natural authority and the weight of his position. Maya Chin is one of the most brilliant policy minds in Washington. She's drafted legislation that's passed Congress. She's advised on Supreme Court nomination strategies. She holds security clearances most government officials never achieve. He turned to Vivienne. Your sister works 80-hour weeks in the West Wing. She's briefed the president personally. She's been in the Situation Room during national security crises. But I suppose that's less impressive than museum curation. Vivienne's eyes filled with tears, her perfect makeup beginning to streak. Phones had appeared throughout the room. The president's son at a Virginia wedding was already trending on social media. Society photographers who'd been hired to capture Vivienne's triumph were now scrambling to understand this unexpected development. Preston's sister, the one who'd married into shipping money, approached with visible uncertainty. Maya, I had no idea you worked at that level. The White House press briefings mention a Maya Chin in the Chief of Staff's office. That's you. It is, James confirmed before I could answer. She's been there for 6 years. He's invaluable. The administration trusts her with matters of national importance. But apparently her own family trusts her to sit with the catering staff. One of the Secret Service agents spoke quietly into his radio. More security personnel were arriving, standard protocol for protecting the president's family. The wedding that was supposed to showcase Preston's family's importance was transforming into something else entirely. Diana, the cousin who'd made the "let opportunity pass" comment, hovered nearby. "Maya, I'm sorry. We all thought you were just... We didn't realize." "You didn't realize because you didn't ask. Because you measured success by your standards and found me lacking. Because my choices didn't make sense to you, so you dismissed them." Richards had arranged additional seating, moving James and me to a hastily prepared table that actually matched the others. But the damage was done. The optics were clear. They'd hidden me with the staff and the president's son had found me there. Preston's mother attempted damage control. "We're hosting a small dinner next month. We'd be honored if you both would attend." "We'll check our schedules," James said diplomatically. Then more pointedly, "Though I should mention that Maya and I are attending a state dinner at the White House next week. The president specifically requested she be there. Family invitation." Mom had actually clutched a chair for support. Dad's face had gone through several shades of red. Vivienne approached our new table, her voice shaking. "Maya, I've been horrible to you. I was jealous and petty and I convinced myself you weren't successful because your life looked different from mine." "You did," I agreed. "But this isn't just about today. It's about years of dismissal. Of being excluded from family events because I might embarrass you. Of being hidden at your wedding like I was something shameful." "I see that now," she whispered. "Everyone does. Only because James walked in. If he hadn't shown up, I'd still be at the staff table and you'd still think I was the family failure." James squeezed my hand under the table. "Should we go?" "Early morning tomorrow. The Attorney General wants Maya's input on the judicial nomination strategy." I nodded, then looked at my family one last time. "Congratulations on your marriage, Vivienne. I genuinely hope you'll be happy. But I can't keep accepting this treatment. Either you value me for who I am, not who I'm dating or what title I hold, or we maintain distance. Those are the boundaries." As we stood to leave, James, me, and the Secret Service detail that had turned Vivienne's reception into a security zone, guests parted automatically. The federal judge bowed slightly to James. Preston's shipping fortune sister tried to engage him in conversation. The society photographers captured everything, their careful wedding narrative completely disrupted. Outside, James pulled me close. "Too much." "Perfect amount," I said. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for finally letting me meet them. Though I'm genuinely appalled they seated you with the catering staff. They didn't know what else to do with me. I didn't fit their narrative. Their loss." He opened the car door for me. "Ready to go home?" Home was my apartment in Georgetown, where classified briefing books waited and tomorrow's policy meetings loomed. Where my real life existed, far from family expectations and society weddings. As we drove away from the Thornhill Estate, I took one last look at the lit ballroom where Vivienne's perfect wedding had fractured under unexpected scrutiny. They'd seated me with the help because I embarrassed them. Tomorrow I'd be in the West Wing shaping national policy. They'd called my work, that political thing that never went anywhere. The administration called me essential. They tried to hide me behind serving stations. I'd been standing in the center of power all along. My phone buzzed. My personal line. Messages from Vivienne, Mom, Dad, all suddenly desperate to reconnect, to understand, to repair what they'd broken. I silenced it and turned to James. "State dinner next week? Wouldn't miss it. Though I should warn you, my father wants to thank you personally for that healthcare policy brief. He said it was brilliant." "The president read my brief?" "Read it, loved it, implemented half your suggestions. You're kind of a rock star in the West Wing, Maya. Everyone knows it except, apparently, your family." I settled back against the seat, watching Virginia countryside blur past. "They know now." "Yes," James said with a slight smile. "They definitely know now." And for the first time in years that felt exactly right. The next morning my phone exploded before dawn. News outlets had picked up the story. President's son attends private wedding, highlights family dynamics. The photos were everywhere. James kissing me at the staff table, the shocked faces of wedding guests, Vivienne's frozen expression captured in perfect detail. By 6 a.m. I was trending nationally. White House colleagues texted congratulations mixed with amusement. The chief of staff sent a message. Nice work on the optics. Remind me never to underestimate you. Vivienne called at 6:30. Then Mom. Then Dad. Then Preston's mother, presumably panicking about how this reflected on their family. I let them all go to voicemail. At 7 a.m., I was in the West Wing conference room, reviewing judicial nomination files. James appeared with coffee and that familiar smile. Morning, rock star. Ready to change the world. Always, I said. The staff table was behind me. The future was ahead. And I was exactly where I belonged.